technology project that he was working on. And he's a junior at Harker. Welcome, Andrew Young. And he will tell us tonight about his research project on bees, where he developed a computer system to monitor beehives acoustically and optically. So he's done a lot of really great work, amazing forward-looking work, and it earned him also a recognition in the International Engineering Science Award 2023, I think. So Andrew, just do you need to connect your computer as well, or are you?
No, he just needs to share his screen.
Introduction, and yeah, just again.
Gerhard.
I'm Andrew. I'm a junior at the Harper School, and I'll just be doing a brief presentation of my research project, which is called Be Well, Developing an AI-based bee health assessment system utilizing computer vision and acoustic signal processing. So my motivation for starting this project really comes down to the decline of the number of beehives that we've seen over the past decade. And after seeing the numbers, I thought, wow, this is like really serious, because like 40% loss per year, I think that was kind of hard to imagine. And so I went and looked into some of the reasons why these hives were failing. Turns out there are a lot of them, and so I wanted to kind of develop a system that can help beekeepers find out when perhaps their hives might be suffering a bit early on. And so traditional methods for inspecting hives, which are human done, they can be accurate, but what I realized was that sometimes they can be time consuming and also destructive to the hives. And so I wanted to design a more non-invasive system that would still be accurate, but serve the bees less, and also be able to continuously monitor them without needing for humans to be at the hive and observing. So looking into the literature, we find that there are some people who have done work with using AI to detect unhealthy bees before. And in particular, I noticed that many of them used either images or sounds. So they would take like images of bees perhaps at the entrance, or they would like record sounds of the bees within the hive, and train some machine learning models that could be able to detect differences between healthy and perhaps unhealthy bees. And so what I was thinking was that I thought that if we combine images with audio together, and if we were able to combine images and audio together, then that would allow us to have perhaps a more holistic view of perhaps what's going inside in the hive, because there's some data that images can capture, and then some data that audio can't. So my primary objective was to try to combine these two. I also wanted to design a more end-to-end system that could start from data collection, and then so we could like record videos and audio from the hive, and then finally output it out to a web application that beekeepers can use to easily receive the health assessments of their hive. So currently, a lot of the monitoring software tracks certain like data parameters about the hive, like the temperature and the weight and others. And so these are useful for beekeepers, but I thought it might be more useful to have like a specific indicator of what might be wrong, and this especially could help beginner beekeepers. But there are some people who have been working with trying to design systems that can detect bee health. Like this one in the center, maybe it's a bit small, but they give percentages for what like percent probability they think is the hive is healthy, and then what probability they think is unhealthy. So yeah. So for my project, I divided it up into 4 key tasks. So the first was the data acquisition. So I would try to build a system that can record videos and audio of a beehive. So record videos at the entrance, and then just audio also at the entrance. I would do this through a Raspberry Pi and then upload it to some central server. And then I would also be able to feed the videos and audio that I got into my second phase, which is my object detection. So basically what I want to do in this step is to filter out images and audio of bees versus not bees, because a lot of the time what the system might capture might not be of bee data, and so I want to prune that out before we feed it to the third step, which is our health evaluation models. And so this is where we look at the images and the audio. Now they're guaranteed to all be of bees, and so there's less things to worry about. And then we can look at some of the characteristics of the bees that are perhaps healthy or unhealthy. And then finally, we can display the results into the final section, which is the web application. And so this would allow beekeepers to upload images and audio of their bees, and then receive the health assessments through the models. In addition, I wanted to add a live streaming system that, so when the system is collecting data, it can also just live stream the video of the hive to the web application, and this would allow beekeepers to, like, at any moment, get a view of what their hive is, doing, even if they're not present physically at the hive. So for my experiment designs, I decided to go with healthy bees and 3 unhealthy bee states. And these would be infestation, and missing queen, and pesticide exposure. And so to collect the healthy data, I traveled to several apiaries. One of them was owned by Mr. Eschelbeck. Thanks so much for allowing me to visit your hives. I also visited Mr. Small and also the Gilroy Bee Association to collect data from their hives. And I also got a few hives for this project, as Mr. Eschelbeck mentioned, and I also got some healthy data from there as well. I tried contacting various bee associations and bee guilds for unhealthy data, but turns out everyone was too good at keeping bees, and so I wasn't able to get a lot of unhealthy data. So I had to conduct some experiments at home. And eventually I settled with these 3 factors because those I could readily produce. And yeah. So for my data acquisition and annotation, I would take videos at the entrances of the hive, and that would synchronize the images and audio. So in this way, I can form a sort of a paired data set. So it's not just with one single either images or audio. It can combine them together, and as mentioned, I believe this could give a more holistic view to understanding the hive. So to label them, for the images, I drew some boxes around the bees for the model to train on and be able to eventually draw out its own boxes to eventually crop out its individual bees. And additionally, for the audio, I just recorded 10-second clips, and then for I manually listened to all of them and then labeled them depending on whether bee sounds dominated the clip, or perhaps there was something else, like maybe airplanes or nearby talks that dominated the signals. So yeah, all the data was taken between the fall of 2022 and the spring of 2023. So yeah. So moving on to the models. So for my image, object detection, I use this model called the YOLO V5, and this is a proven fast detector of images, and so I didn't have much problem with this part, and the model was able to detect these accurately most of the time. One issue that came up during this phase was that sometimes the model would get confused between actual bees and shadows, and so I needed to take some extra attention into differentiating the two. For my health assessment, I trained some more models, and then eventually I trained a model with about 70% accuracy. So one important thing that I realized after the training was that my pesticide exposure data was, the model's were kind of failing at identifying pesticide-exposed bees, and maybe this is because I didn't use enough pesticides in my project to get a large enough behavioral difference between them, because I wanted to use pesticides kind of conservatively. For my audio object detection, I looked at each of the clips through a series of audio features. And so the four of them that I chose were the MFCC, the MEL spectrogram, the SDFT, and also the chroma feature. So among these four features, I actually found that the chroma worked the best. And this is interesting because the chroma feature is specifically designed to look at the individual pitches within a certain sound. And so it decomposes the sound signal into its various pitches and then plots like the intensity of each pitch. And so this suggests that perhaps it might be useful to look into the pitches of the bee sounds when trying to analyze their behavior. For my audio bee health assessments, I trained several models. Again, this time I found that the audio models are able to perform much better than the image models. And so this might suggest that perhaps the audio might be a better indicator of bee health than images. And so yeah. In particular, it was able to kind of overcome the pesticide exposure I guess pitfall that image models weren't able to overcome. So yeah, when looking at that, I thought that was interesting. Now, for like my final model, I trained a multimodal neural network to look at both images and audio. So how this multimodal neural network works is that it will take the images and the audio inside, and then it will assign each of these features in kind of an importance weight. So perhaps if audio is doing better, then it will value the predictions from the audio models more than from the image models. And through combining these signals, we find that it was able to significantly outperform the models that used either just images or just audio at 92% accuracy, where the others were like 60, 70, 80%. Additionally, I also found that the model was very robust, meaning that it didn't have much trouble with one specific classes, where, as we saw previously, some like the image models weren't able to identify pesticide-exposed bees as well as the other models. And we also, again, we see that the audio signals perhaps are a better indicator of bee health. And now, how I came to this conclusion from the multimodal neural networks was that I looked at for each individual modality, or so like for example, I looked at the cases that were missed by the image models, and I looked at how well the audio models could detect the behavior in the pieces of data that were missed by the image models. I found that the audio data was able to capture more of was able to accurately detect more of the data that the image models were kind of failed at doing compared to the other way around. And so, in that way, I came to the conclusion that audio signals might be perhaps better at detecting bee health. And additionally, I found that this model still works pretty fast compared to just using a single modality model. So there shouldn't be too much extra time that's spent using this separate modality. Okay. For the device and the web application, what I did was I combined a Raspberry RGCam and a microphone plugged into a Raspberry Pi, and then I mounted it on my Hive. So this camera will look on the top of the Hive, and it overlooks the entrance, so it can capture the activity of bees perhaps going inside or outside, or just hanging out at the entrance. The microphone is also located near the entrance of the Hive to get the sounds of bees that are at the entrance or perhaps a bit further in as well. So there's a few challenges that might come when trying to live stream EVs. The first challenge I encountered was that if we continuously stream hours and hours of bee data, then that's way too much data to handle. And so what I did was I implemented a sampling system. So using this system, beekeepers can choose kind of what frequency they want the live streaming system to save a clip. So perhaps the beekeeper can choose to view a clip maybe every 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. And so this significantly cuts down the required data needed for this system to work. Additionally, the system also needs a stable power supply in order to run. So my plan is to kind of try to use solar panels in order to kind of harvest solar energy and be able to power this. When I was testing this, the Pi didn't seem to use too much energy, and so I think perhaps using solar panels would be an efficient way to get the energy required to run this device. Finally, this video, the videos that the system captures need to be transmitted towards perhaps some sort of central server or on Wi-Fi or cellular signals for beekeepers perhaps far away to use. Because when I went to Gilroy, their hives were really far out into the countryside, and so perhaps it was hard for them. It might be hard for them to get the data all the way back into the city where they live. And so I'm trying to get this onto 4 or 5G. Currently, it is accessible through Wi-Fi, so that's how I'm currently getting all of the data to the central server. I don't have the system with me today, but I do have a video where I can demonstrate kind of some of the functionalities of this system. Should I? I'll try. No, never mind.
Just play it, it should be fine.
I want the audio to play on this.
It should.
It should? Okay.
Well, play through the overhead speakers, it should.
Well, it's not playing. Okay, anyways, the camera, as I said, it's overlooking the entrance of the hive, and so this, when I was doing a test run, this is kind of what I saw, and so I was able to capture some of the activity at the entrance. And then for the web location, beekeepers can choose a file to upload here, and then after uploading it, I can generate kind of a pie chart to kind of show what the predicted probability of each class is, and so this is how I'm kind of expressing, this is how I'm communicating the results of the model. I really want the audio, but maybe not. Work better than just using solely images or solely audio. The second main innovation is the multimodal neural network, which was able to kind of adaptively try and choose which modality was more effective, and then combine the results from each individual model to form kind of unified results. Third was multi-stage detection, which allowed me to print out the images and audio clips of knot bees before feeding them to my health assessment model. And finally, was I developed the web application to easily communicate the results of the model. So what did I find in this research? Well, obviously I found that bee behavior varies under different health conditions, otherwise this system would kind of fail. I also found that visual and audio signals can complement each other, because as I mentioned with the multiple neural network, each of them was able to cover some of the cases where the other modality failed. But I also found that audio was just, in general, a better indicator than images. And yeah, Those are the main findings. And so, what can we conclude? We definitely found that the multimodal neural network was able to effectively integrate the visual and audio data to combine them together and create a more holistic view of the hive. And also, this attention-based multimodal neural network was able to significantly outperform some other models in literature and also generate predictions very quickly. And additionally, this model was integrated into my BWell system with its streaming and also web application functionalities. And yeah. Thank you for listening.
To follow your journey here on this project as well. One of the things we're always wondering is, are you starting a company on it, and are you going to make it available to all of us here? Or I think there will be a lot of people probably interested in it.
I'm definitely open to the idea of creating a company someday. Maybe once I figure out stuff with like high school and college, I'll look more into it and then try to commercialize this.
That's excellent. I think it's really neat. I think beekeepers will really see value. And what do you see kind of next for the project now? What's the next things that you're planning to do?
I think the next big step in this project would be to kind of flesh out the system, device. So I mentioned like how I want to get solar panels to work with the device, and also like to be able to communicate the data to central servers more effectively. And so my next step in the project is definitely to look at that, and also try to test this on hives that aren't. Oh shoot, my computer died. I said my computer might die. I want to try to also test the system on other hives and make sure that it can work just beyond what I've been testing on.
You are currently using Raspberry Pi. Have you considered using possibly something that's a little bit less power hungry, such as one of the processor boards from Onion, or one of the other slightly less capable but similarly equipped smaller SoC-based systems that would use less power? Some of them also have integrated 5G modems, which would help with your communication problem.
I think that's definitely something I can try to do. That's definitely something I can try to get my project to work on. If they're less power hungry, and I think if like a beekeeper has a lot of hives, then perhaps having them all connected to some sort of like central power device that could also work. So yeah, thank you for the suggestion.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, there's lots of SoC boards. They all still run Linux. They're still ARM-based, so it's well worth looking at.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion.
Are you going to integrate other things into it, like scale on there, so that you can see how much weight the hive is gaining, and or maybe things that detect whether they're swarming, things like that? Didn't we have some young lady named Jennifer come and speak to us about doing something where she was identifying mites and different things, diseases and that? So that's just something else that those could be combined or integrated into that. That'd be a great help to see, especially if you see mites and detect that or other diseases. But the weight can be a real detection of when you need to go out and maintain the hive, add supers and such. But also, I've heard that people who weigh their scales can actually tell when a hive swarms, because it'll lose a lot of weight. In the morning, they're going to lose weight because the bees are going out to work. As they come in and bring nectar and pollen in, they're adding weight to it. And so then you have a different weight that night. But the next day it's going to go a little bit down. But that's a good way to scale it and see how much they're bringing in. And for me personally, if I had a way of scaling and I knew which months, and this would take years to do, but over which months different things are flowering and when my bees are bringing in the most nectar and where my hives are going to be most effective, so that I can move them to another place if they're not going to be effective at all for those months.
Yeah, I I think adding like the other parameters, like maybe weight and temperature, would be really useful. As to their effectiveness in detecting storms, I think one major roadblock that's in the path right now is just the lack of data of like storming hives. So, you also mentioned rural hives, and when I was talking to Mr. Eshelbeck and other beekeepers, I think the general consensus was that mites were the biggest threat to the hives, and so I really wanted to include like mites as one of my like, unhealthy conditions, but I just wasn't able to get the data for it. I think that integrating like weight and temperature would be, I don't think that should be too big of an issue. Maybe getting the data for the storms might take a bit longer.
You could probably identify swarming through audio.
Yeah, maybe also video, maybe the days before the behavior. So I think the fact that you have video data from the entrance may actually allow you to learn over time the behavior of the bees on the entrance and may actually predict swarming. Is your resolution big enough so that you would even detect maybe varroa mites on bees that are like departing, or is that resolution not sufficient enough?
I think the resolution, I think the resolution should be enough to like see mites on the back of bees. When I was looking through like online data sets, they were kind of low quality, but I felt that they were like some instances of mites on the bees' nests.
Any other questions, Brian? Okay.
Yeah, I was really interested in the fact that, sound seemed to be critical in terms of getting good results. Were you able to determine what aspects of the sound were important? Was it certain frequencies, volume, combination of the two? That's really fascinating, to figure out, what attributes of sound would be useful.
What do you mean by sound volume?
Well, there's two parts of sound. Where you have a volume that may tell you something, and you may have frequencies that the bees emit that also might provide some information. Everything from wings to whatever the various sounds are. But what did you find something that was particularly useful in terms of determining the health? Was it a frequency, or did you give us a little bit of information, or did you have to do some research on that?
I don't think it was like one frequency, like one magic frequency per se that can like solve all your problems.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I think from the results that I got, I found it pretty useful to look at the pitches within the sounds and then analyze like how those pitches evolve over time. As for the volume, I think that could be useful, especially like in the case of storming. But I think it could also be just subject to like normal changes in activity, perhaps like when it's in the afternoon, there's more activity, at night there's none. So I think that might need a bit more adjusting to get done, but I think pitches are maybe more interesting to look at.
Along with the sound in the video, if you had sounds where you know what a swarm or what a bee sound, the whole hive changes sound when there's a swarm coming out of the hive. Plus, just the activity coming out is much different than when they're leaving to go work. So that is something that I think would be pretty good for you to integrate that, the swarming aspect. But it also could tell you whether a virgin queen was going out for a mating flight, because often she has a whole entourage that leaves with you, and some people will mistake their hives as swarming when really it's their virgin queen has gone off to do a mating flight. And then there are bees left there that are more active, scenting to make sure she comes back to that hive. And so, also, I don't know if you know this, but you can actually take like two boxes or make it one hive, and you can separate them, and the one that has the queen in it is going to stay at the same sound, the same pitch. And the box you take off that doesn't have the queen in it, after a few minutes, definitely within half an hour, it starts buzzing, totally different, puts off a whole different sound, saying our queen is missing. And that would be really effective in a hive that for one reason or another lost their queen. So I don't, unless you're aware, I'm just saying there's a lot of questions and things that maybe you could ask beekeepers and ask them to submit things like that, so that if you're not aware, you'd be made aware of that, how you might integrate that.
Actually, like missing queen is one of the like I guess unhealthy categories that I looked at. So I think my model should be able to like detect cases where perhaps the queen for some reason is poof gone from the
Right.
hive. In your example of like splitting the hives, I'm not sure how useful it would be, because like you still need to mount the system on like the new hive, right? And if you're manually splitting it, probably you're already there and you know that the queen is gone. But I think in other cases where, like especially like in swarming where the queen is gone, I think so, detecting the presence or absence of the queen can be really crucial.
Right. Also, when you have a new queen getting ready to hatch, there's a sound they make called piping. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another sound that you could be looking for. And how many people in here have heard your bees pipe when they're bringing new queens, or the new queens are about ready to hatch? It's actually this little peep, 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 and yeah, it's almost like a chirp, and very distinctive. And first time you hear it, you're like, oh, that must be piping. Yeah.
Any other questions for Andrew from either online or here in the room? Yes.
So I have been thinking about this problem for a while as well. I think one of the interesting aspect of this project is that you use Raspberry Pi and to analyze the data. I was thinking that it probably interesting to just have DVR, that kind of thing. Like you have a security camera looking at the from entrance, and then you were able to record all the sound and the video, and you can just use another device to pull them off. Like for example, at night there's not too much activity, and then you can like download the whole thing and then to do your offline analyze. The benefit would be it can capture the full data. Right now you are just doing sampling, and I think when you are at which time you sample actually very critical and in your training, because it's like you might see something like interesting and then you sample. I think if you have something always on, and then you were able to record a lot of useful information, and then when something happens, oh, my queen born, and then you can come back and go, oh, this is before the queen born, this is activity and stuff. Yeah.
Do you have training data? Is that your limitation now, is getting data to train the model?
I think that's one of the limitations that's preventing me from perhaps expanding the project to cover more unhealthy states.
Do you have a plan to get more data to feed it, or I don't know, are you really active in the program at this point, or are you back to school?
I'm kind of embroiled in my school stuff right now.